It comes now to a time where the floor will be open for questions from you who are here. The proposed and the plan, as we're going to go forward with it, at least for starters, is that if you direct a question or a comment to a particular candidate, they'll have 90 seconds to address your question or comment. And everybody else on the panel will have an additional 60 seconds to respond to the same question or to respond to each other, however that works. So if you address your question to a candidate, they get 90 seconds, and then the follow-up opportunity is 1 minute for everybody else. So, who's first? What's your first question? Clear in the back.
Clear in the back. Thank you for dropping this off at my house this weekend. I really appreciate reading this. Wayne, you say that John Merrick claims he is saving us money, yet spending is up almost $200,000 in 13 versus 12. If I remember right, I don't think John Merrick was elected until into 2013, and the budget process starts in November, or finishes in November. Could you explain why you are blaming him for that? And then, John, I would like to hear your response to it.
All right, are you fairly clear about the question? The question is to Wayne. You have 90 seconds.
No. Well, I'm not thoroughly clear on the question, but I have the flyer that you're talking about up here. And on everything, like I said, that I talk about, there's documentation. To get the fine details, I have references, and in each one you can go to these sites and find the documentation. You're right, John was elected in 2013, but what all evolved from there and the changings and rescindings and everything else that happened was all his responsibility after that time. But if you really want to find out the facts, take a look at the back of that. Everything is documented. Go to those sites. You will find out the facts. Who's lying and who's not? That's the question. You will find it out.
All right, because of the nature of the question, I think we'll go to John and then the other three of you.
Well, the fact is that spending in 2013 was higher than 2012. The 2013 budget was prepared and passed 6 months before I was elected in November of 2012. I had no control over that. My predecessor did, and the previous boards had control of that budget. Since that time, we enter into 2015. We reduced spending by 7%. We reduced your taxes by 4.8% and cut your garbage collection fee by 25%. Actions speak louder than words, and that's exactly what happened here in your town hall for your taxes and for your benefit.
All right, thank you very much. Let's go back to the right, and then we'll come to the left. So Brian, and then Millette, and then Ryan.
Sure. I'll pass on this question at this time.
All right, Millette.
I just want to comment on that because of the reduction in attorney's fees, and that's something that they did pass. However, that money that was reduced and not spent on attorneys was spent elsewhere on other projects. And they did budget amendments, and that's where increase in spending occurred over what was originally budgeted. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Ryan?
I can't speak to the content of Wayne's flyer, but generally, on a more basic level, I support less government spending, and I supported, unlike my opponent, I supported the last budget, which reduced government spending and reduced all of our property taxes.
All right, thank you very much to all of you, to the question asker. The plan is that we'll proceed with different topics, unless there aren't different topics, and then we can return to the same question later as time permits. Who's next? Please.
Yeah, I have a comment. I would like to thank the timekeeper, our chair for this event,
You're welcome.
and the candidates for showing up and talking and presenting. It was very informative to me, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
And thank you. We're always bad for comments like that, aren't we? All right. Who wants to follow that one? Please, here in the second row, and then we'll go back to the back.
You know, knowing how important transparency is to honest government, how will you promote more transparency in this town board? And I'm thinking about the town, how the town budget was presented, one page. And if you want to come into the town hall, you can get the whole budget. However, how many did that? Probably very few. Also, closed meetings. Also, we had a public hearing this week, and it was about 5 code changes, and we did not find out what these changes were until we got here. And we were handed sheets of paper that showed the code changes. So how could we prepare when we didn't know what the code changes were? So how is there going to be more transparency in this board?
All right, I think the question is fairly clear about transparency, and I think since it's a general question, we'll go for a minute for everybody. And I saw Brian raise his finger to start, and we just go whenever you want to talk. You have a minute.
Sure. 2 things, Janet. First of all, and you and I might disagree, I do think that the issue that's been raised about transparency from my perspective is really a manufactured issue. I don't think there's a lot of basis for truth for that. There are no secrets here. The accusations about hiding and lying and so forth have no place. That said, I think you raise a good point. How can we make information readily available to people? For those of you like yourself who have attended the meetings, I have tried to increase use during town board meetings of PowerPoint presentations so they're more informative. I think we can do a lot more with our website, but I refute the suggestion that there's a lack of transparency. Nobody's trying to hide anything, and any suggestion of that simply is not true.
All right, thank you. Who wants to go next? Millette?
I think you deserve a transparent budget, which is easy to understand when you're asked to vote on the annual tax levy. You deserve to know where, how, and why the town is spending the money that they have collected from your pockets. The board has an obligation to explain to the citizens why they are making decisions and how this will both affect them and benefit the town. And also, our citizens deserve to be treated with courtesy and respect. Explaining the motives behind the decisions which are made is necessary for transparency, and it goes hand in hand with courtesy and respect.
All right, thank you very much. Who's next? Please, Wayne.
Thank you. Transparency, full disclosure, and two-way communication are vital for our citizens to trust their elected officials. A prudently managed governing system will give the taxpayers the highest degree of confidence that their tax dollars are being spent wisely. During our last budget hearing that we had, Millette and I did abstain from voting because we did not see any clarity in the town budget. We had questioned things before then. We weren't against the reduction. We're all for the reduction. Who isn't? What we were against was the non-transparency. We were asking questions and they weren't there. I had received 3 different types of budgets by the time I was done, and Millette and I, after the last one, took it home and spent 2 hours with each other trying to figure out what was all there. That is not transparency.
All right, thank you. Would either of you care to respond? John?
Well, first of all, the budget is here. I hold it in my hands in complete detail. We have 157 individual line items that break the budget apart and show you exactly where every nickel of your tax dollars is being spent. In the past, in fact, you did need to come to Town Hall to receive a copy of the budget. Today, we've taken it a step farther. You can receive the budget and all of its detail and every nickel of spending on the town website. A few clicks of your mouse and you'll be able to find that. Actions do speak louder than words. When presented with an opportunity to lower your town taxes, my opponent chose not to support that and chose rather to abstain and not support lowering your taxes. Regarding closed meetings, in the previous board had 67 closed meetings in 2 years. In the last 2 years, we've had exactly 8 closed meetings. I'd say we're quite substantially more transparent.
All right, John, thank you very much. Ryan, you can weigh in as you choose.
I think transparency is important in government. However, I do not believe that it's a large problem here in the town of Waukesha. The budget has been mentioned, that there wasn't a lot of information available online. I had to go down to the town hall a couple weeks ago and spend some quarters to get copies for it. I'm happy to hear that it's now online, but it saved me some money. The audit, a recent audit, was also available for me to look through if I wanted to. And I think Mr. Merrick made the right step to put everything online, so you don't have to come down here and spend money to make copies.
All right, thanks very much. We're going to go back to the back corner, and then we'll come back up to the second row.
Yes, I have just a question to ask here. First of all, do any of you attend the council meetings in Waukesha for the common council? I'm talking about our board members. Because I sat in a council meeting about a year and a half ago and watched an elderly councilman say, we are losing our tax basis. In short, with what he's saying, we have more social services because of what's happening in the city, and we need to annex all the lands we can get. And he got a nod from at least half of those people on the common council. I'm very concerned because this annexation is not, to me, a dead end. I think we're arguing over taxes a little bit here and so forth. I'm quite pleased with what you're doing. What I'm concerned about is that we're going to get eaten up piecemeal, one at a time. And I agree with Wayne when he just said, I think a lot of it is undercover. I think the city has a lot of power, and I think they can do things that we can't counter. And I'm just concerned with that because after listening to that on a common council meeting, I wonder how many other people have heard such a thing. Because their root cause is they want all the land they can get, whether it goes north, whether it goes south. They're not concerned with that. They're concerned with meeting their bills, and their bills are getting larger each year. So maybe someone can answer that question. Second-wise,
Let's go with one at a time.
okay,
Yep, thank you very much. The questions about annexation issues?
I'd like to address that.
John first.
First of all, there's a great deal of misconception about annexations. The city of Waukesha, or any other city or village for that matter, cannot annex any land from a town. Simply can't be done. The only way that annexations occur is that an individual property owner, like all of you and I, would go to a community and ask to be annexed. That then has to go through the Department of Administration and approved by them, and then back to the city of which that person asked to be annexed into. You simply can't annex land. If you're a city, you can't come to the town of Waukesha and grab land. It simply doesn't happen that way. The annexations in the town of Waukesha, there's only been one in the last 12 months, as I said, 20 acres of swampland. The only reason that people leave the town is if we're not doing the things that we need to do to cooperate with them. For instance, when we badgered and bullied the Walgreens Aldi's project, and ultimately we have a vacant piece of land instead of a $5 million parcel.
All right, thank you, John. Who's next, Brian?
To answer your first question, I occasionally, but not often, attend city council meetings, but I frequently watch them online. And I'll hitchhike a bit on what John Merrick said. The city cannot force town property owners to annex to the city. They can't do that. It has to be at the request of the property owners. We in the town have to do everything possible to dissuade or discourage town property owners for requesting to annex to the city. And part of that is about being cooperative with them when they attempt to try to develop in the town. One of the biggest inducements recently to people annexing or attempting to annex to the city was the fight that we had over inclusion in the water service area. When the former town board voted to exclude the majority of the town from the water service area, many town property owners attempted to annex into the city, and some did. We lost the school district property, 100 acres on Merrill Hills Road, and other properties because we forced their hands.
All right, thank you. Who's next? Amalette.
Yes, I think annexation is very costly proposition for property owners because of if they're hooking up to the city services, the sewer and the water, you have to pay the construction costs, you have to pay connection fees, and then your property taxes are 5 times higher than our town taxes. So it is very costly for people to annex into the city. And I think that more people who are aware of that and understand that might, be dissuaded from doing it. That's why we have town islands, because there's independent people who want to remain in the town and don't want to be annexed into the city. And we have to do everything we can to keep our tax base so our taxes stay low, because if we lose town land, then that tax base gets divided up amongst the rest of us that are still in the town. And so it's very important for our tax base to keep as much land in the town as we can.
Well, thank you. Wayne?
Annexation would be a large cost burden to our town homeowners and taxpayers. As I had said earlier, if you wanted to hook up to these city services, you would have to be annexed. And that would cost you $180 per foot of frontage that you have on your land. In other words, 100 feet turns into $18,000. My land has to be 300 feet. I'd owe $54,000 just to have the sewer main put down in the middle of the road. Then I have to pay $20,000 to $25,000 to hook up to that. Also, when they tried incorporating this town of Waukesha back in the year 2000, the large landowners opposed that. Why? Because they knew they'd get a lot more money if they could be annexed into the city of Waukesha. We just lost a whole bunch of land over there by South High School that I'm sure the Smart Realty Company is really happy. I think they're the ones that are bringing lots of money.
All right, thank you. Ryan?
I don't have any specific knowledge about that town or city meeting that you referred to, but I'm opposed to annexation. A lot of times when we talk about annexation in the town, it comes back to dollars, tax base. People put $1 on your head. I want us all to remain a community because you're my neighbors, and it's important that we stay together as a town. What Mr. Merrick said about annexation and request of that is true. I've read through the state statutes. The major way for somebody to be annexed is to request annexation from the city. The city's not sneaking around trying to grab people up, trying to annex them into the city against their will, but it has to be a application. And I think it's the town board's duty to make the town of Waukesha somewhere where people will want to remain and will want to remain part of this community, so we don't chase people away through annexation.
Right, Ryan, thank you very much. We're going here to the second row.
Excuse me, I just want to say, John, your microphone has a terrible hum when you talk. It does.
It does, I agree.
Well, fair enough. Do I have 90 seconds to address that?
No, but can you fix it?
We'll work on that. No, you have 10 seconds to fix it. There was a hand.
Better?
Clear in the back, please.
I have a question. I have 2 questions. I have one for Mr.
Let's go with one question.
Okay. One question is for Mr. Merrick. During your campaigns, you've stressed the importance of cooperating with your neighboring municipality. As town chairman, along with your clerk, maintain the town's relationship with the city and the county of Waukesha. And can you tell me what the status is today and what would you describe those conditions? Because I need to work with you.
I think much better. I have regular communications with both the mayor, city administrator, the water department in the city of Waukesha. We've done joint projects with the city of Waukesha to repair our roads and our infrastructure. I've negotiated an agreement with the city of Brookfield. We are currently making sure that 288 acres of town land does not get attached to the town of Brookfield through their incorporation efforts. And the city of Brookfield has agreed to pick up all of our legal expenses. So we are still in that fight and at zero cost to all of us, all of our town taxpayers. Previously, that cost was a $450 an hour attorney. We spent many hundreds of thousands of dollars. That agreement could have been reached years ago with the city of Brookfield because our interests are exactly aligned at this moment. So yes, we cooperate with our municipal neighbors.
John, thank you for that. Let me suggest that all of you, as I'm trying to do here too, let's turn our microphones off when we're not speaking into them. And let's go to another response to that question, at least applied somewhat generally as you wish to address it. Brian?
Sure. I have two examples or responses to that. One place that we need intergovernmental cooperation with the city of Waukesha. We have some roads that basically are in common, I will call it. We did successfully last year repave MacArthur Road. Any residents who live out there, that was a project that well needed to be done. We cooperated. We basically hitchhiked onto the city's contract and got that part that was in the town of Waukesha done at a proportionate share. That's a good example. The other one, and the issue is mentioned again to our town septic system here. Michelangelo painted the Sistine Chapel in 4 years and 4 months. We're working on 2.5 years, but that thing is going to be hooked up. When you drove up tonight, you saw the orange fence there. We have an intergovernmental cooperation with the city of Waukesha where they have waived the connection fees in exchange for our agreement to abandon that connection in the future if this property is no longer used for town purposes. That's intergovernmental cooperation.
Thank you, Brian. Who else? Wayne, please.
Okay, I'll have the honors. A city-town relationship is like a marriage, two separate entities working together for the good of all. The total is greater than the sum of its parts, as I've experienced being married to Millette. I've also been through a bad marriage, and our town has a bad marriage with the city. Our partner wants it all, while the other partner is giving it all. The city wants and needs our resources of land, water, and taxes. The city wants it all, giving nothing in return other than hyped up services, which you will pay dearly for. Again, this is where transparency needs to come through. John mentioned the $288 that we're paying, zero attorney fees. Who's our attorney for that 280 acres right now? The attorney that's representing also the city of Brookfield. I think there's a conflict of interest there and needs some questioning and a little bit of transparency.
All right. Thank you, Wayne. Let's go to Ryan.
As a town resident, sometimes it seems that we kind of have a conflict of interest, maybe not a conflict of interest with the city, but there's some animosity in that relationship. I don't like that. I think that we should work together with our neighbors instead of working against them. I was happy to hear that our interests aligned with the city of Brookfield, saving us a lot of attorney expenses with the annexation issue. And I think it's important to push towards better relations with the city. We share common goals. And ultimately, I'd like to see some sort of border agreement long-term, as there's a lot of issues that we both need to hash out.
All right. Thank you very much. Millette, did you want to weigh in on this?
Yes, I will.
Thank you.
Everybody says we are aligned with the city of Brookfield on this issue of the 288 acres. Nobody mentions that the city of Brookfield's position, as passed by their common council several years ago, is that they are willing to annex the entire incorporation area, including the 288 acres of the town of Waukesha. That is their position, and that's what we are aligned with. They are willing to take our 288 acres with the acreage from the town of Brookfield. So I don't think that that's a good alignment for us, and I don't think our interests are being protected in that area. I think also the city of Waukesha needing our water is a very serious issue. And as I knock on doors and talk to people, people are very concerned about the water, and if the city doesn't get the Lake Michigan diversion, that they're going to come after our town water. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. I think there was a question up here toward the front on your right side over here someplace. No? Okay, back here toward the corner. Yes, please.
Okay. My question is basically for all of you in general. As an individual property owner, each of us looks at what we want within a certain lens. However, we also expect that as a town board, that you will look out for the good of the entire town. How will you, in your roles, make sure that you are indeed looking out for the greater good of the entire town from a strategic direction, not just for one faction or another faction, that it really is weighing out everything that is coming into play and making sure that it truly does meet the greater good?
All right, thank you. I'm going to start here at my left side, Ryan, and we'll just go around the curve here. All right, Ryan?
I think that we should, as a town with development, that's why I take your question as asking about development within the town, that we should maintain the rural nature of the town. And we can do that best by adhering to our town ordinances and land use plan. With that, I'm not an objectionist. I'm not going to stand in the way of somebody who wants to start a business, wants to expand their business, and they can meet all the requirements, all the zoning rules, all the land use rules. What we need is smart development that will benefit all of us and benefit the future generations here in the town.
All right, thank you very much. John?
I just want to step backwards for a moment regarding the 280 acres in the town of Waukesha that the town of Brookfield wanted to annex. There is also a resolution that got missed. The city of Brookfield also has a resolution that says upon successful incorporation of the town of Brookfield, they will immediately unattach the 288 acres of the town of Waukesha and give it back to the town of Waukesha. That being said, moving on to the question, actions speak louder than words. We lowered your taxes, we lowered spending, we have ended needless lawsuits, we have encouraged smart growth in our commercial corridors and encouraged the city's application for their Great Lakes diversion in order to protect our town aquifer. That's the only real protection, is to make sure that the city gets their Great Lakes diversion.
All right, thank you. Wayne?
Development in our town needs to be focused on managing our resources through our adherence to our codes and ordinances. Businesses that are compatible with our laws and maintain our standard of living are certainly welcome. That's it.
Thank you. Willette?
I think I heard your question a little bit differently than everybody else did. I heard you were more concerned about the leadership quality and how people are making decisions that will affect and benefit the entire town. And I think that, when you think about it, what do most people want from their town government? They want their roads plowed, they want their garbage picked up, they want the roads kept in reasonable repair, they want, assistance in an emergency, and they want to keep their taxes as low as possible. So this is the areas where the town leadership needs to be concerned about giving us our highest services for our most affordable price. We have to enforce our ordinances and protect our resources, our natural resources, and our way of life. This is the role and decision of our town leadership, and decisions need to be made with what's best for the town and how does the town taxpayers benefit from these decisions.
All right, thanks very much. Brian?
I'll answer your question two ways. First of all, Eileen and I and our grown children live in a town island. All these discussions we've had about the threat to the town, we're living it. Our neighbors and our family want nothing to do with city water, city sewer, city lights, city taxes. So I'm living that part of it. The other thing is I've got a list to here a little bit more about that I think should bring this town together rather than drive it apart. We have far more things to share in common than to fight about. Dissuading property owners from annexing to the city, establishing an investment policy for our town funds, and implementing a capital project plan for equipment and vehicle replacement and road repairs, keeping our town debt-free, mending fences with those we have alienated, restoring a positive image for the town of Waukesha. Those are things that should bind us together. We'll have differences of opinion, but there's far more to bind us together than drive us apart. We need to get on with that.
All right, thanks very much. There was another question. Okay, let's go with you in the tan t-shirt, I think it is.
I just want to make a couple of comments on a couple of comments that were made earlier. I also live in the town of Island, and there was comment was made that there's only been one annexation in the last year. My neighbor, Kensington and Cambridge, was annexed in 2014, so it's two. Not a big difference, but there's two. The other one comment was about the property taxes. The neighbor immediately to the east of my neighbor, as we were good friends of mine, and we have gasped, compared property taxes. And it's nowhere near 5 times as much. Nowhere near. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Was there a question? Please. In the black jacket, yeah, I almost know your name.
Yes.
Nice to see you.
Lori.
Lori, thank you, Lori.
My question is, in the interest of transparency, and this would be directed to all the candidates, what real property holdings do you own in the town, the city, and/or the county of Waukesha, and what businesses do you own and/or operate in those same municipalities?
All right, thanks very much. Who wants to dive in? Ryan, please.
I own a residence, a home, Middle Ridge Court, 1.3 acres, single-family home, and that's the only piece of property that I own, and I don't own a business or anything like that.
All right, thank you. John?
Was the question, I apologize, in the city also? Was that your
In
question?
the city, the town, and the county.
Okay, fair
So
enough.
possibly you might have something in the county that isn't in the city or the town.
Perhaps. In the town of Waukesha, I own my home. I also recently acquired 25 acres of land. In the city of Waukesha, I own multiple buildings. I own multiple buildings and properties in the city of New Berlin. That's what I do for a living. I invest in real estate. So I own multiple properties all over.
And the 25 acres is where?
On Highway 59,
In the town or the city?
in the town.
All right, thank you. Wayne?
I own 1.5 acres with a very nice house on it, in the Oakdale subdivision over here. That's all that I own. I don't have any property in the city or anywhere else in the county. That's it.
All right, thank you. Paulette?
I'm the same as Wayne because we're married and we have one house. Thank you.
All right. Ryan?
Eileen and I own our home on Hinsdale Road that we built in the town some 30 plus years ago. We also have an interest in business property on the 59-164 bypass, Les Paul Parkway, where it crosses Broadway. It's owned by a separate corporation. There's some family trust involvement in it, but we have an significant ownership and administrative responsibility for that property. In terms of owning a business, I have been involved in the architectural and engineering business, and we have our business in our property on Broadway and Highway 59-164. That, in fact, has been there since my father established it there back in 1969. And we have no other land or property or business ownings in the town of Waukesha or in the Waukesha County or city.
All right, thanks to all of you for that. Who's next, please? Over here.
I have a question for every candidate. How many of the town's big landowners have contributed money to your campaign?
All right, Brian, we'll start there. Let's come back around this way then.
None, I'm still waiting for them, so if you want to come something afterwards, fine. I have not taken a dime from my campaign, and I have no intention of doing so from anyone.
Paulette?
I also have not taken any money from anyone and don't plan to take any money either.
All right, thank you. Wayne?
My answer is the same as Millette. When we first got into this, we said somebody needs to run against the powers that be right now and give a different point of view, and that's exactly what we're doing here. We're financing this through our own funds. I'm on Social Security. I'm 65 years old, retired. It's a little bit of a bite, but I really care about you, and that's why I'm out here fighting for you.
All right, thank you. John?
My campaign is self-funded.
All right. Ryan?
A Unlike everybody else up here, I have received some campaign donations. I don't have deep pockets. I've received some campaign contributions. I'm not sure who the big town landowners are, but the funds I have raised have gone towards my flyers I've been handing out when I go door to door, and I bought a handful of signs you might have seen around the township, and then I have some plans for my remaining funds.
All right, thank you very much. Let's go here to the third row.
Just some clarification on the corporation, because I'm hearing two different things tonight. One, that the city of Brookfield is going to pay our legal expenses for this fight, and they will give back our 288 acres if the incorporation doesn't go through or does go through. So I'm a little confused about that whole statement that you just made. And it has to be pointed out that the 133 households that are over there had no clue that this was going on. They want to be in the town. So to Ryan in particular, you made a point about you want to have inclusion to all the property owners that are in the town of Waukesha. They haven't a clue, yet they're being pawns for this whole thing. So I'd like to be, for Ryan, I'd like you to address that, you right away. But then John, I'd like you to clear this up as far as if the city pays our bills, they will relinquish our 288 acres, our 133 households back to us. So something's confusing here.
All right, thank you. We'll start with Ryan.
It is my understanding with talking with the current supervisors and following the issue that the process for this annexation in Brookfield is still in its very early stages. It was in appeals for a couple years actually, and just recently there was a ruling on that. And now the annexation process is starting. I believe there's a review at the state level. I fully support the town's effort to protect our residents and protect our property because that's the right thing to do, and that's what I believe in.
All right, thank you. John?
Well, I'd like to provide some clarity for you for that. First of all, it's not I apologize, it's not an annexation, it's an attachment. The town of Brookfield attempted to attach 280 acres of town of Waukesha land through their incorporation process. The city of Brookfield is in fact picking up all of our legal fees right now, regardless of whether or not the incorporation of the town of Brookfield is successful. The city of Brookfield has stated that they would absorb all of the town of Brookfield and all of the lands that were set for incorporation into the city of Brookfield. They also have a resolution that said if that is successful, they would immediately unattach the 288 acres of the town of Waukesha and return the same to the town of Waukesha. Therefore, our interests are exactly aligned at this time.
All right, thank you. Wayne?
I'm not seeing all kinds of transparency there. Matter of fact, more questions are popping up because one of the statements John said is that he owns 25 acres in that 288 acres. And the way that I see it is that the town is not being represented by any lawyer other than the lawyer from the city of Brookfield. I keep seeing all kinds of conflicts of interest.
All right, Paulette?
The 288 acres represents $60 million of tax base for us. So it's a very important thing, and the people who live in that area do not want to be a part of the village of Brookfield that would be formed if this incorporation is successful. They really need people, the town of Waukesha, to step up and defend them. And the city of Brookfield is being very generous to us. I don't understand why they would, and if I were a taxpayer in the city of Brookfield, knowing that my tax dollars are going to defend the town of Waukesha, I think I'd be questioning my city officials as to why they're so generously using my tax dollars to defend another municipality that is perfectly able to pay for its own defense.
All right, thank you. Brian?
A couple of responses. As everybody knows, this matter is in litigation. Unfortunately, it's not for lack of transparency. There's some limitations on what information can be shared with people. But in in an effort to show transparency, I'll share a little anecdotal story with all of you tonight, which should evidence my commitment to forcefully oppose this immoral taking of 288 acres of our land. 4 years ago, when this issue came to the fore, Eileen and Brian Fisher shelled out between $1,300 and $1,400 of their own money to buy the signs that went up on Greenfield Avenue and along the bypass and other areas. I did it under the representation from 4 board members that they'd each put $100 in the pot, and I'd be at risk with my wife for the rest of it. One former board member stiffed me and has never paid me the $100. Another board member went around the neighborhood with the signs bought and paid for by Eileen and Brian Fisher, collected money to defray the cost of those and pocketed. So don't question my commitment to that issue. I'm out $600 to $700. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Who's next? Laura, you had a question before, and so did you in the back. Is there somebody? You did too. Anybody? Any new questioners?
Can I speak for a minute?
Yeah, we'll start round 2 with some of the same people.
All right. And this is a question I have. If it's true about this water problem that the city of Waukesha is waiting on to hear about this from the water the treatment from coming in from Michigan. If that's true, why are they building all these buildings downtown? If they have a water shortage and they don't know where they're going to get their water from, why would you put new developments up? Hundreds of apartments. And I'm trying to figure this out. Perhaps somebody can answer that question for me. I don't understand it. Because you've seen them. They're going up downtown all over the place. There's 3 of them right now.
All right, thank you for your question. Who wants to dive into the water question?
Thankfully,
Do you like that use of the word?
Yeah,
Dive in. Dive right in.
Thankfully, Kathleen Cummings is here tonight. Maybe she could help us out afterwards. But just on a basic level with the water issue, a questionnaire. I recently filled out a questionnaire for one of the newspapers, and one of the questions was about, what would happen down the road in a couple of years if the city of Waukesha was not successful in the Lake Michigan water. Would you support drilling, allowing the city to drill wells on properties that it owns in the town? I said, no, I don't want the city drilling wells on town property. It raises all sorts of issues and concerns. But on the flip side, we all benefit if the city eventually gets approval, and we should support any efforts they make to obtain this Lake Michigan water. The city wins, and ultimately the town of Waukesha wins.
All right, Ryan, thank you. Who's next? Anybody else?
I'll have the honors.
Thank you, Wayne.
I don't know who that gentleman is, but his line of thought is very much like mine, where I'm questioning how can they keep doing all of this development when they have a crisis that could put everything to a grinding halt. When you're out of water, if they don't get Lake Michigan water and they tap ours and ours goes down and eventually that disappears too, what happens to the value of your houses? Until the city has resolved its water crisis and shown that they can responsibly address their overdeveloped, non-sustainable dreams by maintaining and managing their own natural resources, the answer for future requests of our town must be no. No is a complete sentence.
All right, so is thank you. Thank you. Who else?
Well, I would suggest...
Brian? Oh, Brian.
Thanks for those good questions. I have a suggestion for intergovernmental cooperation, and that's maybe we could ask Kathleen to pass the word to some folks from the city to join us for another session next week, if everybody's up for that. That'd be a good idea. But on a serious note, the city has acknowledged in their application to the DNR that constructing high-capacity shallow aquifer wells in the town of Waukesha on the Lather site or in that area would have very serious consequences, including a potential drawdown of up to 50 feet in wells that are in that area, and in addition to that, lowering the water level in the Vernon Marsh and the Pebble Creek. We need to do everything possible we can to support their application for Lake Michigan diversion. That's the best thing for the town of Waukesha. Any other consequences of no good to the town of Waukesha whatsoever.
All right, thank you. Now, John.
Thank you. I would suggest that the fact that the city of Waukesha continues to build reflects their commitment to the Great Lakes diversion and the fact that they are very confident that they're going to receive the diversion. Regarding our wells, the fact is that we should be supporting that application. We had delayed it for over 2.5 years, which at great detriment to the town of Waukesha residents. The more we support that application, the better off for us. That's the only true safety net for us, is to make sure that the city of Waukesha gets their Great Lakes diversion.
All right, thank you, Millette.
The assault on our town's water resources was my catalyst for becoming more informed and more involved in my community. I see this as a very serious issue, and so do many of you as I talk to you and I go around and meet the citizens. I do support the city's application for Great Lakes water because it is our only safeguard. And I do agree with the gentleman. It feels like every time I read the front page of the Freeman, there's a new development, being proposed for the city of Waukesha. And they don't act like a city that has a water issue going on and a crisis going on with their water. So it's very confusing for me as well, but I do know that we need to protect our town's water supply as best as we can. And it's unfortunate that a city once famous for its water, the city of Waukesha, has squandered so much of their vital resource, and they haven't planned well how to use it. They used to have all kinds of springs and things there, and they don't anymore. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Next question in the back. Is this the second of two that you had at the beginning?
Yeah, this is second.
Do you have more after this?
No, that's it.
Oh, well, maybe you'll have a third later.
Maybe. No, this is it. I've come to many town meetings about a year ago in regards to Infinity Fields or the former Five Diamonds. And in those discussions, there was talk about, and I don't know where you are in the process, so, maybe you've already made that decision. But with the youth baseball fields over there, where do we stand on the serving of alcohol in that area? And where would you weigh in? If you've already decided, let me know. And if you haven't, how would you weigh in?
All right.
Because my concern is that I border your district.
You border the town of Waukesha?
Yeah, I'm the alderman of that district that the whole thing borders. So my concern is the entrance to 164 after people have consumed alcohol in these baseball games.
How'd you get in here tonight? Oh, I'm just kidding. Who would address this?
I don't know where
What's
we
the
are
start?
in the process.
John, please.
Well, the fact is that there is no vote on alcohol. There never was. My opponent has stated that I voted to allow alcohol sales at Five Diamonds. There's been no application for alcohol. There's been no alcohol served there. There's no licensing for sales of alcohol there. It's a complete and utter fallacy. And as a matter of fact, the new facility, the next level facility, they have put in writing that they will never serve alcohol at that facility. So this nonsense, this is another made-up issue that simply doesn't exist. There is no alcohol sales there. Next level said there will never be.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Anybody else want to address that?
Yes,
Wayne.
this is another non-transparent issue. That's one of the items that I have on here. As far as I'm concerned, there should not be any alcohol served at any youth function. On here, I have it referenced. Plan Commission minutes from May 8th of 2014. John was the one that made the motion to have the alcohol there. Please just look it up. You will find it. Thank you.
I'm a little interested in how there can be such disparate facts.
I'll help resolve that.
Okay, Brian?
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Brian?
There has been that was a consideration, but there has been no application for a permit to serve alcohol at this point in time. With regard to my position on that, I'm unresolved on that at this point in time. If and when that comes to pass, that needs to be thoroughly vetted and have a thorough discussion on it. But there has been no permit issued for them to serve alcohol, and they haven't asked for a permit.
All right, Millette?
I'll go. I agree that there should not be alcohol served at a youth baseball diamond. There are high school teams, Catholic Memorial uses that as their home field, and the WIAA expressly prohibits alcohol at their functions. And the other idea, as Alderman Cummings said, people drink and drive. And then you get your children in the car and you're going to be drinking and driving. So I would be totally against this. And I don't think it's appropriate to have it, even if the Plan Commission did open the door. They haven't applied for their application, but the door was opened. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Ryan, do you want to hop in on this one?
There seems to be a lot of confusion about this issue. You know, as I understand it, there may be a possibility someday down the road that they could apply to serve alcohol at the ballpark. I guess I'd have to see their application. Now, I'm not much of a drinker, but going back to my conservative principles, I also err on the side of personal freedom and personal responsibility. And for a specific proposal for the baseball diamonds, I'd have to see their permit and consider that against the zoning and the land use plans for that park.
All right, thank you very much. Please, Lori, again, round two for Lori.
Yes, this question is for Ryan. I don't know how else anybody else might answer it, but Ryan, I understand that you recently applied for the position of County Board Supervisor from this area, as did our chairman, John Merrick, and applied for that when Walter Cole died. And I did watch your interview online and learned that you are an attorney for the IRS, and you kind of mumbled that into your microphone as if you were embarrassed about being a worker for the federal government. You also, I believe, and you can correct me if I'm wrong here, also ran for the 97th Assembly District, and now you're running for this seat as well, for the town supervisor seat. I'm just curious, personally, how you reconcile all your anti-government sentiment against somebody that seems very eager to work for the government. Thank you.
All right, Ryan, I think that was to you, Ryan.
Okay, I'm going to start with the 97th Assembly District. I did not run for the 97th Assembly District. My good friend Brandon Rosner was one of the many candidates in that race, and I helped him out. I served as his treasurer, helped him on doors, and assisted him as he needed help. I did, at the recommendation and encouragement of some people, I did apply for the open county supervisor seat in the fall. Ultimately, I didn't get that. There are a number of candidates, and the board voted and chose one of the former people who held that seat before there was some redistricting. I do work for the Internal Revenue Service. I'm not ashamed of what I do, and I don't hide it. You know, in my life, I strive to make a difference in what I do. It's very easy to go with the flow, and you know what we need in government are good conservative people to stand up and to be good actors. What I specifically do at the IRS is I work with payroll taxes. You know, some of you might be employees, you get paychecks, and you have withholding taken out of your paychecks. Sometimes businesses don't pay that withholding in, and that's what I work with. I work with businesses, try to get them caught up, educate them on their requirements, and ultimately set them up on payment plans.
All right, thanks for that. I'd like to ask a similar variation on the theme, I think, a similar sort of question about how you all individually and as prospective town board members weigh the same kind of question about individual rights, common good of the community, I'm guessing that if you're paying attention, you have everybody who's paying attention has some anti-government feelings, while also having some feelings that feel really quite patriotic. How do you do that balance? Brian?
I'm a conservative and I'm not afraid to admit it. That said, I may even have a bit of a streak of being a libertarian. I didn't support the chicken ordinance in the town of Waukesha. I thought that was extreme government overreach. I am for providing essential, no frills, high quality services to our town residents. They want snow plowing, they want garbage collection, ambulance and fire protection, police services. I hope the fact that those are the principles that I support are not going to disqualify me in some of your eyes, but that's what I believe. And I think we can do a good job of delivering that at a very low cost without an intrusive government.
All right, thank you. Who else? And let me say also, since I sort of rephrased it, I'll come back to Ryan for 60 seconds along the way, now or later. Who else wants to jump in? John? Wayne?
I'm up.
Both of you sort of inching toward your microphone.
I'm a conservative, both fiscally and socially. I probably even err towards libertarianism like Supervisor Fisher. We can and do deliver the services that the town of Waukesha residents require, garbage collection and snow and ice control and so forth, at a very low cost, as we approved in the last budget cycle, last taxation cycle, where we've lowered spending and we've cut your taxes. And I think that if we continue to have conservative board members that will follow those same principles, we'll be able to continue to reduce your taxes while providing adequate services and repairing and maintaining our infrastructure.
All right, thank you. Wayne?
I'm amazed at going from door to door with our campaign literature and talking to the people to see how much mistrust they have in the government. And when I start talking to them and tell them point blank, I'm just a regular citizen like you that cares, and I'm not a politician, and tell them where I stand in protecting the town and wanting the town to remain our town. When we get on that little note, you know, all of their hostility all of a sudden starts changing, and I'm amazed by it. And they are actually my energy to keep going, because my wife and I went, what are we doing? This is nuts. But we care. We want to make a difference. We want to give you an option to choose. There's a different way of life. It's going more towards city, or do you want to keep it to town? You have this option.
All right, thank you. Well,
I'm a concerned citizen, and that's why I was running. I waited till the last day practically to take out my papers, because I was really hoping somebody else would run. But I felt it was very important that there should be contested elections in the town. I think it's very healthy for our town to have these type of discussions and bring out the different points of view. We like living in the town. We like living here. We like our low taxes. We like our open spaces. We like our well and our septic tank, and that's what that's our vision for living in the town, is to keep what we have. And so we're very conservative people. We grow vegetables in our garden. We can. We do all of those things. When they tell you how to conserve money, I do them already. I'm looking for new ways of doing it. So that will be my goal, is to keep the taxes as low as possible.
all right, thank you. Ryan, do you want to say more about that with a little bit more general question?
I'm a conservative. I have the credentials that back that up. I do not feel that it is at odds with my employment. Kind of funny, back in 2008, in the spring of 2008 is when the Tea Party movement kind of started. Back then it was against government bailouts. I helped organize Tea Party in Lynchburg, Virginia. I should have brought the newspaper, but I was on the front page of the newspaper on April 15th, dressed up like an Indian chucking a crate in the James River. And you know what? I think that conservatives shouldn't shy away from institutions, and they should try to make a difference. It would be great if there were more like-minded people at my job. I try to make a difference every day in small businesses. And let me tell you, they're happy to see me compared to some of the other employees at the IRS.
All right, that's not a contradiction in terms. Who's next? Please, here in the third row.
For the sitting board members, given that you are both fiscal conservatives, what exact items will you be looking at in the next budget cycle to be able to continue to cut our taxes, as you say?
All righty. John?
There's a number of different areas. First of all, with the savings that we've had over this winter and the lack of funds that we had to spend for snow and ice control, we've got quite a bit of money left over in that budget. I think we are all in agreement. We'd like to have our salt stored here in the town of Waukesha on our own property, build our own salt storage facility, purchase additional vehicles for snow and ice control. We currently pay about $130 an hour to our contractor, where we pay our own guys $25 to $30 an hour for snow and ice control. If we had more control over our snow and ice control, our costs will definitely go down. We are also very fortunate to have about 1,000 tons of salt left over. The funds that we won't be using to buy that salt next year can also apply towards additional vehicles for DPW.
All right, thank you. Brian?
We need to apply just a little bit of truth serum here. Our town of Waukesha last census has 9,133 people. We're basically, board members here, this is just part-time service. Our town employees total approximately 7 full-time equivalent town employees, and they are wonderful, dedicated, hardworking people. Not taking a kick at the city like some folks have tonight, but they have 77,000 people. They have over 500 employees. This is a pretty stripped down, bare bones operation. I think there's some efficiency and economy that can be had in our delivery of the snow plowing and ice control services. I'm adamantly opposed to continuing to store our salt in Dousman, Wisconsin. That's not a cost-effective thing to be tripping in and out from there. We need an investment policy. We do have some cash reserves so that we can make the best of investments on that. We need a capital project plan so we plan for future expenses. Those would be some of the things I'd be looking at.
All right, thank you. Wayne?
In order to keep our taxes low, we need to do our homework. We have to do some research and review our options, maintaining a high level of service in our town at the lowest possible cost. A thorough review of all the facets of each department's priorities should be evaluated. A prudently managed budget will give the taxpayers the highest degree of confidence that their tax dollars are being spent wisely. That's what I want to do for you.
All right, thank you. Millette or Ryan?
I think it's important to keep government spending low. One idea that I have, just one off the top of my head, is for whatever reason the town has had an exorbitant amount of attorney fees over the years. They're down, which is great, but we still pay a decently large amount of attorney fees for the size of our town and what actually goes on here. I believe it was Wayne before that said, you'll never find an attorney who will take a job for $40,000. You know what, if you're in law school right now and you're looking for a job, you got about a 50% chance of finding an attorney job. District attorneys start at $48,000 a year. People will be beaten down the door if we posted some part-time town attorney position. And I think that would be a lot of savings for the town.
Right, thank you. Millette, did you want to comment?
Yeah, I'll comment. I would like to look at the budgeting. I'm interested in the capital project plan. For the 2015 budget, only $100,000 was put into capital spending, and that was for part of a $300,000 radio system that's due to go online fairly soon, and that's all the money that was budgeted for capital expenditures. There wasn't anything put away for any future purchases in this budget, which disturbs me. I think it would be prudent, like, for example, our biggest fire truck cost $500,000. And if we could come up with a plan to put away $25,000 a year for 20 years, when you need to replace that truck, you would have $500,000. And so I think we need to do a lot more planning for future expenses where we squirrel away a little bit here and a little bit there to spread the cost out instead of trying to buy things in, a 3 or 5 year period. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think that's all 5 of you in response to that question. Is there another question? Please.
I sort of hate harping on this annexation of the 288 acres. I've heard several different explanations and reasons of why things are going the way they are. And I'm having a little problem with that since I've sort of paid attention to it since day one. You mentioned the fact that the city of Brookfield would give back the 288 acres if they won it. If the town of Brookfield wins, they will be a village, and the village cannot be annexed by a city. So that's a blown out statement. That's nonsense. The city of Brookfield, right now, if it becomes Brookfield becomes a village, is going to accrete somewhere is about 500 acres that the town right now is willing to give up to become a village. So this statement that Brookfield is paying all the legal expenses, if the town gets the land, they're going to want to annex all that land and give back 288 acres to the town of Waukesha. It ain't gonna happen. Because the town of Brookfield, if they win, they get the 288 acres. There's a village and it's unannexable. Your other statement is people can't be annexed. Well, we're already running into the problem right now with the 288 acres. I live in that area. I didn't give them permission to annex my property if that's what it's going to wind up being. And they're just saying, oh, they can't come and take it. It's in court right now. You have an answer of why all these discrepancies that have been presented tonight?
I do. I'd like to address that.
Don?
First of all, it's not an annexation. It's an attachment. The town of Brookfield is trying to attach 288 acres. The city of Brookfield has stated in resolution that they would take the entirety of the attempted incorporation property from the now town of Brookfield and absorb that into the city of Brookfield. By resolution, they have also said that they would unattach the 288 acres of the town of Waukesha. So it's in writing. It's already there. So it does exist. The facts are there and they're plain and simple. You had a multiple part question, I think.
Well, your statement, just right now, if the town of Brookfield wins and gets the 288 acres.
City.
The town of Brookfield gets the 288 acres to become a village. The city of Brookfield cannot do anything about the village.
That's correct.
So you just stated that if they get the land, the city of Brookfield is going to give the 288 acres back. How can they do that?
No, if the city of Brookfield is successful in incorporating all of the town of Brookfield into the city of Brookfield.
Oh, so now you're saying that the city of Brookfield is going to annex all of the town of Brookfield?
No, that's not what I said. The city of Brookfield has stated that they are interested in incorporating the entirety of the town of Brookfield. They also stated by resolution that if they were successful in that they would unattach the 288 acres of the town of Waukesha and return it to the town of Waukesha.
You're jumping hoops here. You're stating they're going to try to to get the land of the town of Brookfield. They haven't gotten the 288 acres yet. If the town of Brookfield gets the 288 acres, they will become a village. You're not, I'm sorry, but you're not making sense here. You're stating one thing, and then you turn around and saying exactly the opposite over here. And any resolution that the city of Brookfield has is a moot point if the town becomes a village.
That's absolutely correct. And that's why it's important for us to stay in the fight, and that's why we are participating in that with the city of Brookfield. The city of Brookfield doesn't want the town to incorporate, nor do we.
If the town wins, they get the 288 acres.
Yes,
Right. If the town wins and becomes a village, we'll lose the acreage.
that's correct.
That's why we're fighting it.
That's correct.
Is that clarifying or not so much?
It isn't, to me, it isn't covering why the city of Brookfield would be covering our expenses.
Well, if that's the question, I can answer that. Because our interests are currently aligned. The same attorney that serves the town of Waukesha as our town attorney, the firm of Aaron Smolter, Macy, Riffle, Larson, it's a mouthful, is the same attorney that is representing the city of Brookfield. They are going to do that work one way or the other. The city of Brookfield is going to continue to fight that battle, with or without the town of Waukesha. Our interests are aligned. We don't want the town of Brookfield to incorporate, and therefore they are picking up our legal tab at this point, as our interests are currently aligned.
Well, maybe I'd like to hear then for board candidates, all of you, to address that issue as agreeing or not agreeing that you think the town of Waukesha and the city of Brookfield do have aligned interests in this matter, and do you support the town of Waukesha collaborating or supporting, being on the same side with the city of Brookfield, if this, or as this moves forward? Is that muddy enough to address the question? Brian, please.
Yeah, I'm going to address the question, and I'm going to tell you that I'm not going to answer it. I'll tell you why. For the moment, this is a dynamic situation. We're getting way ahead of ourselves. Dial this back a bit. The town of Waukesha, from my perspective, has every reason to completely and forcefully oppose this immoral taking of 288 acres of our land. Leave aside even the fact we're going to lose the tax revenue of it. One of our fundamental principles in democracy is freedom of choice. The people who reside in that area are being denied freedom of choice because they cannot participate separately in a referendum for that forced taking type of thing. I think we're way ahead of ourselves. Whoever's sitting on a future board is going to deal with the issue about committing resources, in my opinion, to fight this absolutely immoral taking. So I don't even want to get into discussion of strategies, alignments, that type of thing. This is a dynamic situation that could unfold, and the future board will need to address it.
Who's, in your formula, who's doing the immoral taking?
The immoral taking, or the attempt at the immoral taking, is by the town of Brookfield.
By the town of Brookfield.
Because I'll finish it quickly, they're basically trying, in my judgment, to pervert a state statute to force this to a referendum so that the residents of the town of Brookfield and the limited number of residents in the small area of the town of Waukesha go to referendum together. You might as well save the time on the referendum because everybody knows what that outcome is going to be. It'll end up being the village of Brookfield. So what we've been fighting for 4 years, and this will involve further litigation, no doubt, is to have separate referenda in order to allow that joining so that the people in the town of Waukesha have their own voice.
So we, okay then, so we get a little civics lesson along the way here. Anybody else want to chime in on this particular matter? Wayne?
Yeah, I want to chime in a little bit. As you know, I like to do things through documentation. I really would like to see the document John is talking about that says that there's an agreement that the city of Brookfield will allow that 280 acres to remain with the town of Waukesha. I need proof.
All right, thank you. Anybody else know that? All right.
I'm opposed to this attachment, is that correct? Attachment of land by the town of Brookfield, and I believe everybody up here has the same opinion on that. We're all opposed to it, pretty much all for the same reason. And then as for this, the thought about the city of Brookfield paying the legal fees, makes sense to me. I don't feel as though there's anything going on behind the scenes, nothing nefarious afoot. Same attorneys representing both parties, and I think it's a good deal not to have to pay these legal fees because the city doesn't want the incorporation, and neither does the town of Waukesha.
What?
I also am against the town of Brookfield taking the 288 acres, so I think that if any of us were elected to the town board, the residents in that area can feel confident that everybody up here is opposed to that. And it is, as Mr. Fisher said, an immoral thing. It's kind of precedent setting. And it's right now, the judge has ruled that the town of Waukesha can be an intervener, which means we can object to it along with the cities that are objecting, the city of Waukesha, the city of Brookfield. And also it's with the State Department of Administration right now, and they have a time period to review all of this. And that's why it's in a holding pattern. We have to wait to see what the state decides before we can decide where to go from there. So it's in holding right now because we're waiting on a decision from the State Department of Administration.
Well, with your unanimous agreement on this, it's hard to know who to vote for when you have to make a choice. What's another question? Please, right here in the front row. Oh, all right, hang on. John was giving us a little bit more of the facts. How about an opinion?
I am opposed to the attachment of that property to the town of Brookfield, both as a town supervisor and as a property owner. I have a great deal of skin in the game as I am the largest property owner in that area. So by no means do I want my land transferred into the town of Brookfield.
All right, fair enough, succinct enough. Front row here, please. Thank you.
How's the mic on? Okay. We started this evening talking about transparency, and I'm in possession of a video that shows that immediately following the town board meeting on February 12th, you, Supervisor Fisher, along with Supervisors Dorr and Radke, went to Michael's Italian Restaurant on Sunset. This was not some random accidental social event. Everyone planned in advance to meet there. It was, in effect, a secret meeting. As a quorum, you three engaged in an unnoticed illegal meeting. Feel free to refer to Wisconsin Statutes 19.822. Town Clerk Kathy Nicholas was also in attendance. Let me read just one sentence from that statute, where in Part 3, Section A, Paragraph 5, it states, "Similarly, where a majority of members of a common council gathered at a lounge immediately following a common council meeting, a violation of the open meetings law was presumed." And I have the supporting documents from the Attorney General's office. There's no point in denying the February 12th meeting. The video evidence is clear. And further evidence exists that this was not the first or only time this has happened. So please, take us on a trip down memory lane and share with us, unless there are too many instances to remember, how often and when you have engaged in unnoticed meetings of 3 or more members of the town board, and if Chairman Merrick or Supervisor Wolf were also ever in attendance at such meetings.
Sure, that's directed to me. I'll respond, Mr. Hum. On that evening, after the board meeting, Supervisor Durr and I did meet over at Michael's. After we had been there for some period of time, Supervisor Radke showed up. I finished the adult beverage I was drinking and left. There was no secret meeting.
All right, John, you're reaching for the mic.
Yes. I'm offended that you make allegations that we engage in illegal meetings. You have no proof. It's simply an allegation in order to smear the sitting board members who are performing an outstanding job for the town of Waukesha. And I'm offended that you would even make such a statement.
All right, anybody else want to speak to that? Okey-doke. Who's next? Right here again.
I just want to ask one follow-up question to this gentleman's question, because I'm still not clear. I'm sorry we got to beat this on the desk. The city of Brookfield wants to attach 500 acres of the town of Brookfield.
No.
Do I have that right?
No.
I don't have that right.
No, the city
And
of
then they
Brook,
give back 288 acres.
no, the city of Brookfield has said that they will attach the entire town of Brookfield,
Okay.
including the 288 acres, the entire incorporation. What the town of Brookfield has said, we're going to incorporate this chunk of land. The city has said, we would take that into the city of Brookfield
The entire
and
town.
the entire town of Brookfield. And at that point, by resolution,
Right.
they have said they will unattach the 288 acres
Okay.
and return it to the town of
I
Waukesha.
got that clear now. How is that any different, Brian Fisher, from the immoral standing that you just took on the town of Brookfield taking the town of Waukesha's land to the city of Brookfield taking the town land, town of Brookfield land? How is that any different?
If I understand your question, to me, it is not.
Okay, so why are we aligning with the town, the city of Brookfield, who is doing the same thing that the town of Brookfield wants to do to us?
The city of Brookfield has offered to absorb those. The reason that they're looking at that is they've identified about $3 million in savings that the two communities that are involved, the city and the town of Brookfield, could save if they were aligned together, if they became the town and became part of the city. That's not our fight. Our fight is to protect the 288 acres of the town of Waukesha land. What the city of Brookfield does with the town of Brookfield, I couldn't care less. I care about the 288 acres that I'm tasked with protecting for the town of Waukesha.
Sure, I understand. So I guess the question I really have is, who is really fighting for us? We're kind of putting our eggs into the city of Brookfield lawyers, right?
No,
Because it's expedient for us to do that.
no. Our lawyers are also the city of
Okay, but
Brookfield's lawyers.
But they're picking up the tab. Someone said it tonight, they're picking up the tab.
That's correct.
Okay, and they're doing the same thing, the city of Brookfield's doing the same thing to the town of Brookfield as the town of Brookfield wants to do to the town of Waukesha. You see where I got a problem with this? Is that why doesn't the town of Waukesha have a legal fight here to say, we want to protect the town of Waukesha and only the town of Waukesha, we don't have anything to do with the city of Brookfield or the town of Brookfield or anybody else. And I'm all for paying additional, if we need to put additional legal expenses out there to do that, to protect the town of Waukesha, not to hang all our hopes on the city acquiring the town of Brookfield.
We aren't hanging our hopes on that. As a matter of fact, it's probably very unlikely that the town of Brookfield is going to win their incorporation battle, number one. Number two, we're not hanging our hopes on that at all. We are tasked with protecting the 288 acres of the town of Waukesha, and that's what our attorneys are doing.
Brian?
Yeah, just a bit, and again, there's a limit to amount, there's a limit as to how much of this can be discussed in this kind of a session. But that said, it should be a surprise to no one of the town several years ago when this thing heated up and it quieted down while it was on appeal for well over a year. The town spent a significant amount of money investing in the services of an attorney from Washington State, who's originally from the Wisconsin area, knows a lot of the ins and outs of the Department of Administration and Corporation Review Board. There's been an extensive amount of work that's been done there to provide a defense and representation for the town of Waukesha if and when we get to that place. So the only thing that I guess I would like to leave people with tonight is, from my perspective as a sitting board member, the town has options available to it. This is a situation that's going to unfold, and I think we need to be prepared to deploy those resources if and when needed. I can't tell you anything more. I don't know if that's reassuring or not.
Thank you very much. We're at the time of the evening when we thought we would break to, not break to leave, but break the process now and hear from the candidates a couple of minutes of a closing statement. You're on the edge of asking a question.
Yes. It sounds to me like the board members are in close contact with the lawyers for the city of Brookfield, but are unable at this time to divulge all of the ins and outs of this, not annexation, but taking of the town land and the attachment of the town land and the process between the city of Brookfield, the city of Waukesha, and the town of Brookfield. Am I correct in this?
To some degree, yes, but just one point of clarification. The city of Brookfield's attorneys are our attorneys also. We retain the same legal counsel
But do they talk to you
constantly,
about this problem?
constantly.